You know, when a war breaks out in one country, it can often feel distant. But the recent conflict between Israel and Iran, that was something different. It wasn't just a regional fight. It unleashed a series of massive shockwaves that are, right now, completely reshaping our global economy, our political alliances, and the very balance of world power. And it all boils down to this one huge question. How can just one conflict in one part of the world actually trigger a full-blown global recession? How can it shatter political alliances that have been rock solid for decades? And maybe the biggest question of all, how can it completely redraw the map of global power? Well, we're going to break down exactly how it all happened, step by step. Okay, so the very first shockwave, it hit almost instantly. And it hit the world right where it hurts the most, our energy supply. And the reason why is actually pretty straightforward. The conflict immediately threw a wrench in the works for the flow of oil and gas. We're talking key infrastructure, pipelines, shipping lanes, all damaged or disrupted. And when that supply suddenly gets choked off, the global market panics. The result? Fuel prices everywhere just went through the roof. But here's the thing, that initial energy shock, that was just the first domino to fall. It quickly started to bleed into the entire global economy, setting off a second, much bigger shockwave, a full-blown economic crisis. What you're seeing here is the inflation chain reaction in real time. It's a brutal but simple cascade that connects the conflict directly to your wallet. When fuel prices skyrocket, it costs more to transport, well, everything, from raw materials coming into a factory to the food heading to your local grocery store. And those costs, they inevitably get passed on to you. That's why your grocery bills suddenly jumped. And look, this wasn't just a problem for one or two countries. This chain reaction fueled inflation on a global scale, and it slammed the brakes hard on economic growth, pushing the entire world right to the edge of a major recession. It was the nations that have to import all their energy, they were the most vulnerable, and they ended up feeling the most pain. But beyond all the big economic numbers, there's a real, devastating human cost here. This crisis is estimated to have pushed 32 million people into poverty. Just let that number sink in for a second. 32 million people. The source material uses this incredibly powerful phrase to describe what's happening in poorer countries: development in reverse. It means that years, even decades of progress in fighting poverty are being completely wiped out. It's like all that hard work just vanished. They're not just standing still, they're literally moving backward. All this intense economic pain, it started to do more than just hurt people's wallets. It became a powerful tool in diplomacy. And that kicked off our third shockwave, the fracturing of alliances that we thought were unshakable. Just take a look at what happened with Israel. All of a sudden, it found itself more and more isolated as its traditional allies started to back away. Spain and France actively slapped on arms embargoes and blockades. Even Germany started getting publicly critical. And that diplomatic chill was happening in the United States too, where public support for the war just started to crater. But the really big one, the crack that shook the very foundations of the Western world, was the split between the US and Europe. For years, they acted together. But this conflict created a deep, deep divide. The US jumped in alongside Israel, but key European nations refused to offer their full support. And the result was this serious breakdown of trust that really weakened the core of an alliance like NATO. Now, to really get why this all matters so much geopolitically, you have to look at a map. Specifically, right here, at this tiny little choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. A huge chunk of the world's oil supply is forced to pass through this narrow waterway, which makes it, arguably, the single most important shipping lane for the global economy. And this is where it gets really interesting, because it creates this paradox. Even though Iran was hit hard militarily in the war, its location on the map gives it this massive strategic advantage. By controlling the Strait of Hormuz, Iran effectively has its hand on the tap for the world's energy supply. And that is a powerful, powerful lever it can pull to influence the entire global economy. So, you take all these shockwaves, energy crisis, the economic fallout, the cracked alliances, and they all converge into one massive final result: the birth of a totally new world order. Now, let's be super clear about something. The war didn't create this shift out of nowhere. It was more like an accelerant. Think of it like pouring gasoline on a fire that was already slowly burning. The slow decline of a unipolar world, one dominated by the United States, well, this conflict just kicked it into overdrive. I mean, this chart really lays it all out, doesn't it? We're moving from that old unipolar world with the US at the center to a new multipolar one with several different centers of power. The old fixed alliances, like the US and Europe, are giving way to more flexible, shifting partnerships. And maybe the biggest change is about trust. Countries are moving away from relying on one superpower and focusing more on self-reliance and building stronger regional partnerships.
And all of this leaves us with the million-dollar question for our time, right? This new reality is here to stay, but the rulebook, it hasn't been written yet. In this new multipolar world with no single country in charge, who actually makes the rules? And maybe even more importantly, who's going to enforce them? That is the uncertain future we're all stepping into right now.